The damp smell of mildew clung to the air, mixing with a faint metallic tang of rusted pipes. Officer Blake Harrington's flashlight flickered across the cold, tiled walls of the prison showers, catching beads of water that trembled like the ghosts of the past. His K-9, a German Shepherd named Titan, froze mid-step, ears pinned forward, growling low and refusing to move. Something beneath the cracked, mold-streaked tiles had set the dog on edge, a presence Blake couldn't see but could feel pressing against his chest. Every instinct screamed danger, yet the prison guards treated it like a routine inspection. Tonight, routine was about to shatter. If you enjoy chilling cinematic crime thrillers like this, make sure to like and subscribe for the next chapters. You won't want to miss what unfolds beneath these walls. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and flickered, throwing uneven pools of pale yellow across the damp floor. The prison showers have been abandoned for years, yet the water line still ran with thin, cold trickle. Officer Blake Harrington tightened his jacket against the chill, his boots echoing on the concrete as he moved slowly down the corridor. Titan, his German Shepherd, walked beside him, alert but unnervingly tense. The dog's growl was low, almost inaudible, until he stopped, tail stiff, staring at a section of cracked tiles near the far corner. "Easy, boy," Blake whispered, squatting to meet Titan's gaze. But Titan wouldn't budge. He barked sharply, then backed away slightly, hackles raised. Blake's stomach tightened. Dogs didn't react like this without reason. "Sir," it was Officer Delaney, a younger recruit with wide eyes that betrayed both curiosity and fear. He carried a flashlight, shaking just enough of the beam to dance across the wet tiles. "It's just tiles, right? Probably rats or something minor." Blake's jaw tightened. "Rats don't make the hairs on your neck stand on end." Delaney swallowed hard and followed Blake's gaze. The tiles, though cracked and stained with years of mold, seemed off. The pattern of some cracks formed angles that didn't make sense. A faint, irregular scraping noise came from beneath the corner tile. Blake knelt, running gloved fingers over the edge. It was loose. He glanced at Titan, who continued to growl, vibrating with a tension that made the air itself feel heavy. "All right," Blake muttered, standing. "Call the rest of the team. We're going to check this properly." The other guards arrived, their boots squeaking on wet concrete. Captain Mallory, a stocky man with a permanent scowl and eyes that seemed to weigh every word before he spoke, approached Blake. "What's got him spooked?" "Not sure," Blake said. "Something under the tiles." Mallory crouched, running a hand over the cracked surface. "Probably just debris. This place has been abandoned since '08. Don't let the dog's nerves get to you." His voice carried authority, but there was an edge, an almost imperceptible hint of unease. Blake didn't respond. Titan barked again, a sharp, urgent sound that made everyone flinch. "Fine," Mallory said, voice rising. "Let's see what's under it." He pulled a crowbar from his belt and struck the edge of the tile. The sound echoed through the empty shower room. A hollow crack followed by a faint, sickly thud. The guards froze. Blake crouched beside the tile, trying to peer beneath. The floor seemed ordinary at first, but then he saw it. A faint smear of dark brown, almost black, streaking across the cement beneath the tile. The smell hit them next, a sharp, coppery tang that made Delaney gag. "Oh, God." Delaney pressed a hand to his mouth, stepping back. Mallory's face paled. He glanced at Blake, then at the others. We need to call it in," he muttered. Blake nodded. "Secure the area. No one touches anything else." But even as they moved back, Titan didn't stop barking. He pawed at another tile, a smaller section near the drain. Blake knelt and lifted it carefully. Beneath, a hand, skeletal, partially decomposed, was pressed flat against the cement. Silence swallowed the room. Blake swallowed hard. The hand was old, but freshly exposed. The nails were broken, skin mottled with age and moisture, and the wrists bore what looked like deep scratches. Titan's growl grew louder, resonating in the cavernous shower room. "Who?" Delaney whispered. Mallory's face tightened, jaw working. "That's not just old trash. That's someone." Blake knelt, examining the body beneath the tiles. The remains had been carefully concealed, but signs suggested hurried burial. There was a faint indentation along the spine, almost like a mark from a blunt instrument. The position of the hands, clenched, desperate, spoke of terror. This isn't just some old prisoner," Blake said quietly. His voice trembled slightly, betraying more than just shock. This was someone the guards didn't want found. Mallory frowned, pacing the room. "You're suggesting?" Blake nodded. "Yes, someone hid this. And whoever did it didn't care if history ever uncovered it." Delaney swallowed, stepping closer. "But this prison, it was supposed to be closed. What's the story?" Blake shook his head. "I don't know yet. But Titan," he sensed it. He always senses when something's wrong. Titan's eyes were fixed on the next tile. Blake's pulse quickened. He lifted the tile slowly, revealing another skeletal limb. The body beneath had been dismembered, carefully concealed beneath the tiles in a grotesque, methodical pattern. It wasn't a single victim. There were multiple bodies. Mallory's face went pale. "God, Blake, you need to call this in. Now." Blake nodded, reaching for his radio. His hand froze as a faint scratching sound echoed from the far end of the corridor. Not under the tiles this time. From somewhere above, pipes, vents, maybe the shadows themselves. "Did you hear that?" Delaney whispered. Mallory's frown deepened. "Probably just rats. Old building. Don't." Titan erupted into a series of frantic barks, charging toward the far wall. Blake ran after him, heart pounding, flashlight bouncing. At the end of the corridor, a loose grate covered a small maintenance tunnel. Titan pressed his nose against it, growling ferociously. Blake lifted the grate, revealing a dark shaft descending into the unknown. "Stay back," Blake warned. Delaney and Mallory hesitated, eyes wide. The air from the shaft was cold, damp, and carried a metallic tang of blood. Titan's tail was stiff, ears forward, refusing to enter but refusing to leave. Something in that darkness was alive, or it had been, not long ago. Blake took a deep breath, forcing his nerves to steady. He knew the proper procedure. He radioed headquarters. "We've uncovered multiple concealed bodies in the old prison showers. Requesting full forensic team and backup. Possible homicide scene." Static filled the radio before a calm voice replied. "Understood, Officer Harrington. Units are en route. Do not disturb the scene further." Blake lowered the radio, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down. Titan nudged his shoulder, whimpering softly, almost as if sensing the danger beyond human perception. "Blake." Delaney said quietly, voice trembling. Why here? Why would someone?" Blake shook his head. "I don't know yet, but we'll find out. Someone wanted these people buried, forgotten, and it looks like they didn't expect anyone to ever find them." The sound of the approaching sirens echoed faintly through the old prison yard. Blake knelt once more, brushing his hand over one of the skeletal hands. Titan rested his head against Blake's knee, growling low, and Blake whispered, "We're going to get the truth, boy. I promise." Outside, the night had deepened, the clouds rolling thick and heavy. Rain drummed lightly against the old concrete walls, carrying with it the smell of wet earth and decay. Somewhere deep within the prison's shadowed halls, secrets stirred, secrets that someone had killed to keep buried. And for the first time, Blake realized that the horrors beneath the tiles were only the beginning. By dawn, the prison yard was swarming with investigators, forensic teams, and local media, their cameras flashing like intrusive eyes in the cold morning light. Blake Harrington stood to the side, Titan at his heel, watching the scene with a mix of exhaustion and dread. The bodies had been carefully cataloged, photographed, and removed, leaving behind a lingering smell of iron and damp concrete. Captain Mallory hovered near the main gate, pacing in short, measured steps, muttering to himself. Blake noticed the tension etched across Mallory's face, the way his hands clenched and unclenched like he was fighting a private battle. The man had been a mentor once, a guide through Blake's early years on the force. But now there was something different, something Blake didn't like. "Blake," Delaney whispered, tugging at his sleeve. His eyes darted nervously at the cordoned-off area. Do you think someone alive could still be in there?" Blake glanced back at the empty showers. The tiles had been lifted, The body's gone. Yet the feeling lingered. The presence of something hidden, something deliberate. I don't know, he said carefully. But Titan doesn't lie. Titan whined softly, nudging Blake's hand. The dog's instincts had been eerily accurate tonight. Blake had seen it before, how the German Shepherd could sense danger, betrayal, and even death long before a human could process it. As the forensic team worked, Blake was called aside by Detective Lorna Hayes, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for uncovering the darkest secrets in small towns. "Blake," she said quietly, her voice cutting to the morning haze, "I've reviewed the preliminary reports. This isn't random. Multiple victims, carefully concealed, some signs of blunt trauma, others worse. Whoever did this had knowledge of the prison layout and the guards' routines." Blake frowned. "You think it's an insider?" Lorna's eyes met his, steady and unflinching. "I think someone knew exactly how to hide bodies without drawing attention. Someone who wasn't afraid to get their hands dirty." The words hit Blake like a punch. He glanced toward Mallory, who stood nearby, watching the forensic team with an intensity that made his skin crawl. Mallory had always been cautious, even calculating, but something about his posture, the tight line of his jaw, screamed concealment. Titan tugged at Blake's sleeve, restless. Blake knelt, whispering to the dog, "I know, boy. I know. We're not alone in this." As the day wore on, Blake and Lorna moved to the prison's interior, investigating areas overlooked by the first responders. The air was thick with the scent of mold, wet concrete, and old secrets. Water dripped from broken pipes, echoing through the empty halls like tiny warnings. They entered the warden's old office, long abandoned, papers yellowed and curling with age. A journal lay open on a desk, the ink faded but legible. Blake flipped through it, reading fragments of directives, personnel notes, and cryptic warnings. Names were crossed out, sometimes with a single word scribbled beneath. "Eliminate." Lorna leaned closer. "This is damning. Whoever kept this was documenting their killings." Blake swallowed hard. "Seems like it. But these names, most of them are guards who served during the prison's final years. Maybe even some prisoners." Titan growled softly, ears swiveling toward a corner. Blake followed his gaze and froze. A faint scratch mark led from the floor to a wall panel, like someone had tried to open a hidden compartment. He pressed the panel, and it moved with a creak, revealing a narrow crawl space. "Not for the faint of heart," Blake muttered. Lorna raised an eyebrow. "Shall we?" Titan barked once, sharp and insistent. Blake crouched, slipping into the crawl space. The air was damp and suffocating. The smell of decay was stronger here. Lorna followed, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. At the far end, they found evidence that made Blake's stomach twist. A stack of photographs, each showing different prisoners and guards, some smiling innocently, others captured in moments of fear or pain. Notes accompanied the images. Dates, names, cryptic observations, sometimes ominous warnings. This is a record," Blake whispered, "of everything that happened here. Who was punished, who was eliminated." Lorna's face was pale. "This is more than murder. This is methodical. Someone orchestrated terror in this prison for years." Suddenly, Titan growled loudly, baring his teeth. Blake turned to see a figure at the entrance of the crawl space. Mallory, his face shadowed, eyes unreadable. "Captain," Blake said cautiously, "you shouldn't." Mallory stepped closer, a faint smirk on his lips. "Funny how you always find things you're not supposed to, Blake." Lorna stepped in front of Blake, voice steady but firm. "Mallory, back away. Now." Mallory's eyes flicked to the photographs, lingering on a particular image. A young man in prison garb, eyes wide with fear. His jaw tightened. "I didn't think anyone would see this. Didn't think anyone would dig into what really happened here." Blake's pulse raced. "You were part of this, weren't you?" Mallory's expression hardened. "Part what?" "I followed orders. Did my duty. You think this is simple murder? It's survival. They were dangerous, some of them beyond redemption. I protected the prison. I protected lives, even if it meant cleaning up messes." Titan growled again, closer now. Mallory's hand twitched near his belt. Lorna moved slightly, eyes on him. "Blake, you don't understand," Mallory continued, voice rising. "I did what had to be done. Those bodies, those tiles, every single one was necessary. The town doesn't know the horrors that walk these halls. I stopped them from escaping. I stopped them from hurting anyone else." Blake swallowed hard, anger and disbelief warring in his chest. "You killed them. You buried them alive, or close enough. And for years, no one knew. For years, families mourned, thinking they'd disappeared. And you lived like nothing happened." Mallory's eyes glinted with cold intensity. "I lived knowing the truth. That's more than most can say. You think you can judge me?" Blake felt a hand on his shoulder. Lorna whispered, "Stay calm. Titan senses danger, but he also senses intention. Watch him." The dog's fur bristled, teeth bared, but he didn't move. Mallory paused, taking a slow step back, his gaze fixed on Blake. "You can't stop history from being revealed, Captain," Blake said quietly, voice cutting like steel. "The truth is already here, and people will see it." Mallory's smirk faded, replaced by a tight, controlled rage. "History doesn't matter when survival is at stake. Remember that." He turned sharply, disappearing into the shadows of the prison hallway. The echo of his boots faded, leaving only the dripping of water and Titan's quiet growl. Blake exhaled slowly, adrenaline coursing through him. Lorna moved closer. "He's dangerous," she said, "and he knows how to manipulate everyone around him. We need to act carefully." Blake nodded, kneeling to scratch Titan behind the ears. "We'll get him. But first, we need to understand the full extent of what he did here. Every tile, every body, every name. And we need to find out why he thought he was above the law." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the broken windows and sending a chill down Blake's spine. Somewhere in the abandoned halls, the secrets of the prison whispered, carried by the drafty corridors and the echoes of betrayal. He glanced at Titan. The dog's ears twitched, eyes scanning the darkness. Blake knew instinctively that the German Shepherd had sensed something deeper, a danger that went beyond the walls of the prison, beyond the bodies, beyond Mallory himself. "This isn't over," Blake murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Titan whined softly, nudging his hand. Blake nodded. Not even close. And somewhere, just beyond the reach of the flashlight beams, the walls seemed to watch them, silent witnesses to the horrors hidden beneath the tiles, and the betrayal that had festered in the heart of the prison for decades. The storm broke in the early hours of the morning, rain hammering the prison roof in jagged sheets, rattling broken windows, and sending rivulets of water coursing along the cracked concrete floors. Blake Harrington stood at the threshold of the old shower block, Titan at his side, ears erect and tail stiff. The forensic team had left for the night, leaving him and Lorna alone, the fluorescent lights buzzing weakly overhead. They had gone through every scrap of evidence collected so far, but a gnawing feeling in Blake's chest told him there was more, something still hidden, something that would finally explain the full scope of Mallory's atrocities. Blake's hand hovered over the crowbar, the metal cold against his gloved palm. Titan growled low, a warning that Blake instinctively understood. Danger lay ahead. "Are you ready?" Lorna asked, voice steady but quiet. Her eyes scanned the shadows, sharp as ever. Blake exhaled slowly, nodding. "As ready as I'll ever be." They moved deeper into the showers, each step echoing, amplified by the emptiness. The tiles underfoot were slick with rainwater tracked in from the outside, yet Titan's paws made no noise as he led the way, nose twitching, ears pivoting to catch the faintest sound. Blake reached the far corner, where Titan had first refused to move. The tiles had been partially lifted earlier, but one square remained firmly in place, almost hidden in the shadows. Titan pawed at it insistently, barking sharply. Blake knelt, pressing the crowbar against the edge, and slowly pried it up. Beneath was a small hatch, just large enough for a person to squeeze. Through, a foul, metallic smell drifted up from the dark void beneath. Blake peered down, flashlight slicing through black. The crawl space extended deeper than they had expected, twisting into a narrow tunnel that descended below the prison's foundations. "This has to be it," Blake murmured, swallowing hard. The last place. Titan whined softly, nudging Blake's hand. Lorna glanced at the dog, then at Blake. Careful, she said. Whatever's down there, it's deliberate. Someone wanted it hidden. They climbed down, the metal ladder cold against their gloves. The air in the tunnel was thick with mold, damp, and the unmistakable tang of old blood. Their flashlight beams swept across the walls, revealing scratches and stains that told a story of struggle and fear. At the far end of the tunnel, Blake froze. The space opened into a small chamber, low-ceilinged and claustrophobic. The center of the room was lined with tiles identical to those in the showers above, but these were freshly disturbed. Blake's breath caught in his throat. They've been hiding something here, Lorna whispered. Blake moved closer, Titan sniffing along the edges. Then he saw it. The floor tiles had been lifted to reveal a pit, shallow but large enough to hold multiple bodies. And inside, they weren't bones. They were intact, preserved in some manner, though grotesquely contorted and hidden. The sight made Lorna gag, and even Titan whimpered softly, ears pinned back. Blake's stomach churned. He recognized some of the faces from the photographs found earlier, guards and prisoners alike, frozen in terror, victims of Mallory's meticulous concealment. The realization hit him like a punch. Mallory had done more than just bury the dead. He had created a silent tomb beneath the prison, hiding the bodies of those he deemed threats to the institution he believed he had to protect. Suddenly, a noise from behind made Blake spin around. Mallory stood in the tunnel entrance, expression hard, eyes glinting in the flashlight beam. "You found them," he said quietly, almost impressed. "I knew you'd sniff it out eventually. Titan's instincts didn't fail you." Blake's pulse raced. "Mallory, this ends now. You've been covering up murders for decades. It stops here." Mallory shook his head slowly. "Do you know what it's like, Blake? To watch chaos, to know you can stop it, but only by doing what no one else can? I protected this town, this prison, these people. They would have destroyed everything. I was the only one who could." Lorna stepped forward, voice firm. "You murdered people, Captain. That isn't protection. That's delusion." Mallory's gaze flicked to Titan, who growled fiercely, lips curled, teeth bared. "That dog, it knows. Always has. But it's too late to stop it now. Too late to stop what's already done." Blake's mind raced. He needed a way to end this without further bloodshed. He glanced at the pit, at the hidden bodies, at the evidence of years of betrayal and cruelty. Titan barked sharply, snapping Blake's attention back to Mallory. Then, almost instinctively, Blake spoke softly, deliberately. "You can't control history, Mallory. All the years you spent hiding the truth, it's unraveling now. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies anymore." Mallory hesitated, just a fraction, his composure faltering. Titan lunged, teeth bared, growling. Mallory stepped back, the weight of his own guilt finally cracking through the armor he had worn for decades. "You don't understand," Mallory muttered, voice breaking. I did what had to be done." "You understand now," Blake said quietly, voice firm but not cruel. "And now you'll answer for it." Mallory slumped, defeated, the rage draining from him. Lorna moved to secure him as Blake documented the scene, Titan remaining alert but calm, the GermanShepherd sensing the shift in tension, the closure that was finally possible. Hours later, the authorities had arrived, backup and forensic teams flooding the prison with methodical precision. The bodies were carefully removed, cataloged, and evidence preserved. Blake stood outside in the damp morning light, Titan at his side, watching as the truth finally emerged from the shadows. "You did good," Lorna said quietly, handing Blake a cup of lukewarm coffee. "This will bring some closure, though it can never undo what happened." Blake nodded, chest tight. "I know, but at least we exposed the truth. And maybe the families will get some peace." Titan nudged Blake's hand, whimpering softly. Blake crouched, resting his forehead against the dog's. "We made it through, boy. We made it through." The storm had passed, leaving a cold, gray morning. The prison loomed behind them, silent now, but still heavy with memory. Blake realized that Mallory's betrayal had been personal, as well as institutional. The man had once been trusted, even admired, but the hunger for control and the fear of chaos had twisted him into a killer. As Blake walked away from the prison with Titan and Lorna, he felt the weight of what had been uncovered settling deep in his chest. The shadows beneath the tiles were gone, replaced with light and exposure. But the emotional scars, the knowledge of what humans were capable of, and how easily trust could be broken, would linger much longer. Back in town, Blake paused at the edge of the main street, rain-soaked and silent. He thought of the families, of the lost lives, of the betrayal that had festered in the shadows. And then he thought of Titan, faithful and perceptive, who had guided him through fear and uncertainty. Blake knelt again, pressing a hand to Titan's head. "We did the right thing, boy, and we'll keep doing it. Because someone has to." Lorna stood beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And you won't stop. That's what makes you good at this job. What makes you human." Blake nodded, looking back one last time at the looming structure. The prison was no longer a tomb. The horrors beneath the tiles had been exposed. Justice, slow and messy as it always was, had finally been served. Titan barked softly, as if agreeing, and Blake smiled faintly. He felt the weight of closure, subtle but profound, settling over him. The story was over, but the memory of what they uncovered, the betrayal, the fear, and the courage, would remain forever, etched into their lives like the tiles of that forsaken shower room. And as Blake walked away into quiet dawn, he realized that some truths were buried not in tiles or walls, but in the human heart. And it was only by facing them that anyone could truly move forward.